And joining us now for more on the latest developments out of Israel and the region and the U.S. is Harrow. He's the former chief of staff for Prime Minister Netanyahu, and Ron Kampeas. He's the former Washington bureau chief for JTA, the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. Ari, let me start with you. Prime Minister Netanyahu trying to putting a positive spin on this plan that was approved by the UN, saying it could bring peace and prosperity to Gaza. But clearly there are some problematic elements in this plan for Israel. How should the government be reacting and dealing with it?
Well, firstly, I think that, we have to choose whether we want to look at this from an optimistic lens or a pessimistic lens. Anytime you have a plan that both the Israeli opposition and the coalition partners to the right attack equally, then you have to understand that somebody was trying to strike a balance here. What was passed in the United Nations yesterday really was, with a little additional detail, the plan that President Trump presented here in Israel that the entire nation stood and applauded for. It brought about the return of the hostages. We're still waiting on the remaining bodies that are in Gaza. But ultimately, this is the plan that Israel sought. It is the plan that Israel worked for, and it's a plan that Israel received. I think the mention of a Palestinian state is not inconceivable when you look at the co-sponsors of this plan to the United Nations. You look at countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Indonesia and other Muslim countries in the region. It's clear that you had to present them with sort of an olive leaf so that they can justify this type of activity in Gaza. And I think ultimately the proof is going to be in the pudding. Is Gaza going to be demilitarized? Is Hamas going to be dismantled? And is Israel going to respond and react if its security is threatened in the future?
Right. And you hear Ron, Ari, use that expression, an olive leaf. But I think that, as he says, that really depends on how much the Trump administration is going to press on issues like the disarming of Hamas, and also on moving ahead on some kind of political horizon for the Palestinians. So in your view, how serious is the Trump administration on those key elements, as seeing it as part of the overall plan?
I think that the Saudis make the Palestinian component more prominent. I don't think that the Saudis can move ahead without a pathway to some kind of pathway to Palestinian statehood, something that they can tell their constituents, and even though it's a monarchy, it's a dictatorial monarchy, they still have a constituency in the Muslim world. They consider themselves to be the guardians of the holy places of the Muslim world. I think they need something substantial. So as far as that goes, I think that Trump is gonna be quite serious about pressing towards the disarming of Hamas, the conditions that will pave that way, because his vision hinges on a comprehensive Middle East peace. That's what he sees as his ticket to the Nobel Peace Prize next year. And for that, he really needs the Saudis on board, and the Saudis need the path to Palestinian statehood.
Right, Ari, and let me ask you about that. Ron bringing up the importance, the prominence now of the Saudis and the influence they have. Certainly in the White House, and we see this. We can relate this also to the sale of the F-35s, which is also something that could be problematic for Israel. How much do you think that influence that MBS has now in the White House may impact on decisions that, again, could be problematic to Israel?
I think we have to remember that the talks between the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Israel did not start in the last few weeks or in the last few months. They started in Trump's first term in office. These are talks that have gone on and have gone into great detail by both sides for a very, very long time. I think that both sides at this moment are trying to, turn the screws a little bit further in their own direction, and everyone's trying to extract what is in their greatest interest from their own domestic points of view. And I think that it's not shocking from that perspective that Saudi Arabia has made these requests and will make other requests as well. But don't forget that Israel remains the closest ally of the United States, definitely in the region and probably in the world. Trump has made it very clear, not only in word, but in action. And I think that ultimately we have to remember that every time that the media and the public discourse questioned that support of Trump to Israel, it's been proven to be false. And I think that ultimately we will see Trump and his administration continue to support Israel in its vital needs. And it's a tightrope that they're going to have to walk with Saudi Arabia.
Ron, I think we can agree with Ari's point that you can't really question President Trump's personal commitment to the U.S.-Israel alliance. But the political atmosphere in Washington, the U.S., has changed regarding Israel overall, even in his own Republican Party. For example, I think we're both old enough to remember the AWAC sale by the Reagan administration to Saudi Arabia, which generated a much more of an active response from Israel, from its supporters in the U.S., AIPAC, the Jewish community, which does make me perhaps wonder about, beyond President Trump, that's U.S. support for Israel.
Yeah, I think Ari's right. I think at the end of the day that as long as Trump is president, it's going to come back to a strong support for Israel. The problem is that he's presiding over a Republican Party that is radically changing at its roots. There's a war going on now in terms of just all sorts of identity issues. So how the Republican Party defines itself in the grassroots, and Israel's a big component of that. I point to somebody who's very close to J.D. Vance, Rod Dreher, the philosopher, who wrote a long piece the other day about how he came to Washington and he had an assessment that 40% of the Zoomer age, the Generation Z age, Republicans are Groypers or Groyper adjacent, and that refers to the anti-Semitic, very anti-Israel movement led by Nick Fuentes. So, if we're talking short term, the prospects of something coming out of this now, I think it's pretty positive. Long term, Israel has a problem here. Right.
And Ari, certainly you could respond to that, but I also want to just get a sense. Okay, so these deals, this plan is moving forward. The F-35s are going to it. What should Israel expect realistically now from the U.S. in terms of pressing either the expansion of the Abraham Accords or some kind of further actions against Iran?
So, firstly, I definitely think that anyone who does not agree with Ron's caution as far as the day after Trump would be blind. I think that he's 100% right, and it's something that has led to tragedy for us here in Israel when we did not think a little bit further down the road. It is important for us to remember what Israel's strategic threats are at the moment. Obviously, strategic threats can change over time, and there's obviously some new ones on the horizon. But today, as we sit here, there still are two fundamental challenges that Israel faces. The first and foremost, from an existential perspective, is Iran. And Saudi Arabia is a key component of any type of action or any type of deterrence that both Israel and the United States want to create vis-a-vis Iran to deter them from rebuilding, renewing their nuclear aspirations. And I think that this fits into that immediate strategic need that we have. So that's point number one. Point number two, and to answer your question, is really with regard to Hamas. When we talk about Palestinian statehood or the path towards Palestinian statehood, what does that mean? Well, it means a lot of things. And I think that the immediate challenge and the immediate strategic imperative that Israel faces is showing the terrorist organization and showing any future leadership that terrorism not only does not pay off, but that it will be wiped out and dismantled from our vicinity. And I think that the challenge that Israel puts back in the United States' lap is really validation and verification that Hamas will not only not play a role, but that it will be demilitarized, that Gaza will be demilitarized, and that a better future can exist.
All right, gentlemen, I'll just conclude. As President Trump is so fond of saying, we'll see what happens. Certainly, these are going to be some challenging months ahead of us. Harrow and Ron Kampeas, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.